right, Faith, let's take a deep breath and relax. We're going to start in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Never Too Late, Real Stories of Reinvention, where I share the stories of dream chasers, career changers, and people with the courage to reinvent themselves. I'm Eric Cooter, and each episode I sit down with someone who has taken a leap, discovered a new path, or found joy in the unexpected. These conversations are about hope, resilience, and they remind all of us that it's never too late to chase your dreams. Today, I have the pleasure and I'm so honored that I get to spend some time with Faith Phillips. Faith is a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. She is a novelist, a screenwriter, and producer, and her storytelling journey has taken her from corporate law, can't wait to hear about that, to the heart of Hollywood and home again to the Ozark foothills. Her work shines light on justice, something in my heart, identity, and the power of story to heal and transform. Now, Faith and I, this is actually the first time we've actually had a chance to meet each other, but we were introduced through a mutual friend and a previous guest, Father John Tolles, who spoke highly of Faith and that she's a true storyteller and such a creative force. And I couldn't help but just invite her to be a part of the podcast. And she's agreed. So I'm just overjoyed. So Faith, thank you so much for being with us today. Anything you'd like to add before we jump in?
I'll just say OCO, which is the Cherokee word for hi, and I'm delighted. I'm so excited to be on the podcast, and especially with the theme, Never Too Late. So I'm ready to just jump in.
All right, let's get started. So here's our first questions.
Okay.
So Faith, could you take us back? What was it like? What was life like growing up in the Ozark foothills and as a citizen of the Cherokee Nation?
Well, it was wonderful, and is wonderful. I'm still here in the Cherokee Nation, although I've moved many, many times, but I've come back here for my writing career. But as a little girl growing up in the Cherokee Nation, you couldn't think of a more wonderful place for a child, especially a child with a very vivid imagination, which I think to have been born with. I would walk through the fields by myself, explore the forests, as you said, the foothills of the Ozarks. So, we really are in the wooded hills, and it's, these beautiful streams, rivers, lakes, just kind of an outdoor paradise for an adventurous child, which I was, and I was a huge reader. So everything I read encouraged me to be adventurous and experience life outside. And I just had this crazy imagination. I can remember sitting on a log that was over a stream and just staring down into the water, and just all of these stories coming up, bubbling up in my head. I wrote my first book in the first grade.
Oh my gosh. That's wonderful.
It was the first, my first book, but just the beginning of many to come. But go ahead.
Do you still have that manuscript? Has it been published, or?
My grandmother has it.
Oh my goodness.
You could imagine, it was actually published in the school library. So that was my big, my first taste of literary success was to have my little, I don't know how many pages, maybe 20 pages, and I illustrated it. But was kind of, it predicted things to come because it was kind of like a supernatural thriller. It was called Grandma and the Water Gnome.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's interesting, folks I've been talking to, and I'm having so much fun sharing people's stories and giving them, kind of another venue to talk about it. But, a lot of the folks I've talked to, including myself, is those seeds of who we dream about or who we're being led to become or how we're called to live life. Those seem to a lot of them have been planted early on in life like that, it seems.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it? Yeah.
I'm starting to become more and more aware of that, that it's really important to listen and keep your eyes open for those little winks that say, maybe this is the road you need to go down.
Yeah, I agree. And people come into your life, in the faith tradition I'm a part of, and we talk about angels as being supernatural beings, and maybe they are. I don't know. The scripture talks about that, but the word is actually from Greek, means a messenger. So I think that sometimes that people come into our lives, your grandmother or someone, someone who has come to you and said, I see something in you you don't see in yourself. And they're the messengers that help guide us along the way.
I agree. And I also think it indicates how important it is that you speak into people.
Hmm.
So I think, I don't remember how old I was. I might have been 6 or 7. And one of my grandfather's friends had come over to visit, and I was at my grandparents' house. And I was just out on the porch doing whatever weird little kids do. And he just stopped and he said, there's just something about you that makes me think you're going to have a really extraordinary life.
Oh
And,
my
I'm
goodness.
just like a 6-year-old drooling on myself. What do I know? But to have someone speak that into me, I don't know if he was prophesying the future or
Mhm.
if he was just giving some positivity into a young woman who, but it stuck with me, obviously.
Yeah. I think it may be both.
I
I
think
think,
so.
yeah, I think words, and as you know, I mean, words, well, I'm talking to a writer. I mean, the words are powerful, and what we say and what we read and what we take in and what we put out it's power,
I always
so.
say that. I always say your words are very powerful, which means you have to be careful
Um,
uh, about what you say, and also the words that you take in your vessel. I feel strongly about that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So thinking about your time growing up, maybe some more, and and how did that upbringing, the people that were in your lives, and the experience of the mountains and being out in nature, but being in a culture that's rich and just so amazing, how did that shape your sense of justice and even in imagination, and just kind of can you share a little bit about that?
Well, we weren't wealthy at all. And so we didn't go on any huge vacations, family vacations. But what we did for vacations, we would go down to the river for a weekend or even a week. Sometimes we would have fish, the family would have fish camp. And I hope you can hear the siren in the background. This is perfect for where we're going. I hope everybody's okay out there, but we got to stay on track. But so we would go, the men of the family are fishermen, and we regularly ate catfish, but they
Hmm.
would go down for a week at a time sometimes and just set up on the river, and we would go down and visit. Often we wouldn't spend the night, but we'd go down and visit, and they would have a roaring campfire, and all of the family would be sitting around the campfire, and it was story time.
Oh,
No,
wow.
we didn't call it that. That's just, and so we would talk about characters in our family
Hmm.
that were no longer with us, and really like these extraordinary stories that were kind of hard to believe. You would think,
Yeah.
"Oh, is that?" But they were fantastic. So it
Right.
didn't matter how accurate they were; they were just so fantastic. They would light your imagination on fire. And then also, besides that, we would hear the lore of the stories that we told, and often those stories involved something, maybe with a little bit of a spooky twist to it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, and of course, Bigfoot was always just right in the tree line, behind us. And then these fantastic stories of like spook lights and things like that. And I didn't, I was just I didn't realize at the time, but I was just soaking the skill of storytelling into my being.
Right.
So it was just naturally there. And I think they say that I was reading the newspaper at 2. I don't, that's also hard to believe, but that's what they said. So I've always been, an avid reader, but we also have this very strong oral storytelling tradition
Hmm.
that is just passed down naturally.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
sure it's probably in the genes too. Um, but that was really, I can picture it right now, just like sitting there with the sparks coming up from the fire and everyone taking turns telling their stories. And it definitely set something off in my brain and my makeup that would send me down this road that I never could have predicted.
I know we were talking a little bit before we started recording about. I think you had said about just this life that you have you couldn't imagine, and sometimes you have to. I guess you kind of pinch yourself and go, "Is this real?" Sometimes, yeah. But I'm when I hear you speaking about the fire and the sparks, I'm there with you. I mean, I get that. I get that, and that had to be to be around people. We were so tied to technology right now, and people are so down here so much looking at their phones, but to be able, like, and I grew up kind of like that too, around a lot of family. We'd go to family reunions, but to be able to be engaged with people in community like that, it's a small community like that. It just has such an impression on us,
It
and
was such a powerful experience, and I wonder about people today. Will they be able to say, I mean, do you really want to go and tell a story about how you were reading something on scrolling on? And listen, I'm guilty. So
oh, I'm too.
I'm not
Look
judgmental
what's
at all. But I just wonder about the richness and the quality of life and what that is doing to us because, I made sure to take my son um, to the river, even though we moved out. I moved out of the Cherokee Nation for quite some time.
Mhm.
And I'll get into that, later when we're talking about all of my decisions and whether or not they were smart. But I made sure to bring my son back to the Cherokee Nation so he could be around family and experience what that's like. And I think that stuck with him. He's still to this day, he's practicing law now.
Oh, wow, wow.
Yes, and he's in the city, but he still loves to camp out and go to the lake and the river. So I'm glad I instilled that in him.
What a great joy to pass on, and hopefully he'll pass that on to future generations too.
He's
You,
also
you
an avid reader and a storyteller. I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up writing books eventually as well.
oh my gosh. Now,
He was
now
my first
that
editor.
oh
Yeah, yeah, my very first book. He was the because he came up reading Tolkien and things like that. Very
oh yeah.
similar, and it was very inappropriate. But I just had him read my first supernatural thriller, and he was my first editor. So
Oh, I love it. I love it. That is so awesome.
passing it down.
There you go. And that's one of the things that, I've heard some people say is, and we talked about that earlier, the people that have influenced us our life. And so you've been able to do that for your son as well. So,
It was really important for me to be able to pass down the thing, and that's part of the Cherokee tradition too. Is
mhm.
just teaching the next generation the importance of our roots
Yeah.
and our stories.
And like I said, I think I told you earlier, I grew up kind of in the Appalachian Mountains, and we didn't grow up. We were just very lower middle class. My parents had a little store, but I grew up on a farm, but we went, like, I had multiple cousins, 8 or 10 uncles and aunts on both sides, and so we went to family reunions. I'm sitting here and I'm hearing echoes of some of those family reunions where we all sat around and told stories what Papa used to do and stuff like that. So, but so going back for a second, you said your grandmother, I think you mentioned, was a big influence on you. Your grandfather spoke truth to you. Was there any other people that were big influences that helped you kind of discover your voice that you can think of?
Well, definitely my mom and dad. So I think that really has a huge part to do with my story and how things unfolded. Because growing up, they always told me that I could be and do anything I wanted to. They told me I was beautiful and strong, and I heard that as long as I could remember.
Hmm.
So then, by the time you get into American society at large as a girl, and you start hearing and seeing images that make you think maybe I'm not beautiful, maybe I'm
Uh,
not, maybe women aren't supposed to. It was too late because they had already instilled in me, that I could do anything. And
right.
not to mention, the Cherokee culture is matriarchal. And so
Hmm.
women are expected to be at the center of the family. They're expected to be in leadership roles in all decision making. And so when I was coming up, my grandfather was on the Cherokee Council, and the chief of the Cherokee Nation was Chief Wilma Mankiller. And she actually wrote my letter of recommendation into law school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
Oh my
another
gosh.
one of my claims to fame is
That's
that
wonderful.
Chief Mankiller recommended me for law school. Um, so that was definitely an inspiration because then when life comes along and you get knocked down, which is it's inevitable,
Hmm.
you've already been told that you can overcome anything, and it doesn't mean that those battles and failures don't still hurt terribly.
Hmm.
But it's just a wonderful thing to speak into a child.
Yeah. You're giving them tools to have the tenacity to face. I've always said, yeah, I'm not the only one that said this. I think we all have heard this, that you learn more in the failure than you ever do in the ongoing successes. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, and so, but to have the tenacity to say, okay, it's not failure. I've had a moment of great learning. So what do I do with it now? You
Right.
know? Yeah.
And also just to not allow the limitations that the world or society or people may try to put on you. I mean,
Hmm.
technically on paper, I should have never even considered going to law school
Yeah.
or college. You know, it would be perfectly acceptable where I'm from to have gone to work in the local factory, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I mean, the people that work in the factory in my community make a good living and take care of their
Hmm.
families. Um, but it was ridiculous for me to expect that I could go to law school. But I just never questioned it.
Yeah.
When I decided I wanted to do something, I never thought, well, maybe I shouldn't because I don't have a lot of money and I'm from a community that doesn't necessarily have a lot of lawyers. I just did. I just went.
I love it. Well, and that's a good segue.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about law school, and you practice corporate law for a while, and then so talk about that a little bit. Tell us about your corporate law and going to law school and all that.
It's hilarious, really. And so in undergrad, I I got a degree in political science, but I wanted to go to law school because I was just really interested in constitutional law,
Hmm.
and um, I really didn't know exactly what kind of law I would get out in practice. I just knew growing up I was already ambitious, and so I didn't necessarily know I was going to be an attorney, but I knew that I really wanted to become a success. I
Right.
wanted whatever that meant, and according to what I heard, most people hear when they're growing up, doctor or lawyer.
Right.
So I just
Right.
thought, well, I'll just go be a lawyer, even though my deep passion has always been reading and
Hmm.
writing.
Hmm.
Um, but like I said, there weren't a lot of authors coming up out of my community that I could look to as an example. So
Right.
I just thought, well, if I want to become a success and one day take care of my family, I probably need to go to law school. Well, you can imagine I stuck out a little bit because I'm from the sticks. I'm a little bit of a hick, and I was walking in with the children or the sons and daughters of senators and generational attorneys, families of attorneys,
Right.
um, and I was just kind of this little goon that walked in from Adair County out of the sticks. And so I felt like an outsider, but I've always kind of felt a little bit like an outsider. So I'll one of my favorite stories about that was in con law. The very first case we studied was um, oh, United States or Georgia versus I can't remember the name of the exact case, but anyway, it was basically about the Cherokees being removed from their land on the Trail
Yeah.
of Tears to Oklahoma. And the first line of the decision of the opinion written by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court said, "The United States has always honored its treaties with the native tribes." And I couldn't help it. I had to say right off the bat, how can I respect your opinion when the first sentence you say to me is an outright blatant
Outright
lie?
lie. Right. Right.
And everybody in the, because we were debating this was part of our curriculum, was to
Right.
debate in front of the class, and everybody was kind of like, "You just called the Supreme Court a liar?" But I think that's really why it's important that we have people from all different walks of life
Right.
represented in our institutions, because when we tell each other stories that we might not have heard otherwise, then it can open up your mind to other possibilities. So I
Absolutely.
went off on a tangent there, but
No, I love it. I love it. I'm all about justice. I love it. No,
I
please.
realize that the theme of justice runs through everything I've ever written, everything I've ever done, and I think it was one of those things that I was just born with. But um, so I graduated law school, and I had to get a job. I had to take these massive student loans out to be able to get my education,
Hmm.
and surprisingly enough, you can't make a ton of money out of law school with a focus on constitutional law and political science. I was shocked. So I got hired at a manufacturing plant in
Oh
to
wow.
be the in-house counsel. So my job was to make sure that they were compliant with employment law, labor law,
Hmm.
environmental law, and I loved it because I could be a corporate attorney, and all of that it entails. But what I loved about it was that I was working with the people, the employees of the plant. These were
Right.
welders and like really hardworking people, and I was able to advocate for them
Right.
and protect their safety, make sure that they didn't get hurt on the job. And so everything I did was to protect these employees. It was very stressful, the job,
Hmm.
especially the environmental part, because there are all of these calculations like air emissions and things like that.
Right.
So I was responsible for the environmental calculations and reports that went to the feds and the state. And if you mess that up, you're in big, big trouble.
I can only imagine.
And so, at night, sometimes I found myself grinding my teeth, which is really strange for me. I'm a pretty
Oh
laid back
wow.
person.
Yeah.
For the most part, I don't get too stressed about much. I try to be very calm and peaceful. Calm and peace are very important. Um, but I found myself being very stressed at night, just because what if we get cited for some violation that I'm honestly, I'll just tell you the truth, Eric, I am not good with math. It's it's not my gift, and that was part of the calculations, of
Right.
the air emission. You had to do all, and anyway. But the part that I loved about it was that I was able to protect the people that were working there,
Yeah. I
and
can see
so
that.
yeah, I forged relationships with all of them,
Hmm.
and so I don't know, I might have stayed there my whole life. I don't know, but all I know is that on the weekends, anytime I had free time, I was writing. I
Yeah,
was writing something.
that was going to be my next question. You're doing this and you're wrestling with the math and some things you didn't want to do. It sounded like you loved, and I can see that in just the short time that I've known you here. That this idea of justice for people that are working hard, trying to raise their families, and you're trying to take care of them and follow the law, and that was probably joyful, but at the same time, um, the stress of being accountable for that kind of things.
Right. And if somebody did get
Yeah.
hurt, that was my responsibility, because I was
Right.
responsible for their protection, or for their,
Right.
their safety on the job. So it was very intense, but I was riding in on the weekends and every time I had a chance. And then the company sold to a larger corporation.
Mhm.
They brought in
Oh, yeah.
chief operating officer who was just brutal,
Yeah.
and he started systematically stripping away everything I had put in place to protect my colleagues. And he wasn't rude to me.
Mhm.
He was actually quite respectful of me. He was rude and cruel, I would say, to the employees.
Uh,
And I just thought, I can't stand by and watch this person abuse. I couldn't stay.
yeah.
And in the
Yeah.
meantime, I had this book that just kind of downloaded in my brain that thought, well, I've been writing my whole life since I wrote my first book in the first grade. Why don't I just quit? Why don't I
Oh,
just leave
wow.
corporate law and start writing for a living?
My
And
gosh, that was that was frightening, I can imagine.
it was crazy, and it still is crazy. It's still just an insane notion to leave a steady, dependable, well-paying job to go pursue a career in the arts that makes no sense. And a lot of people thought I was crazy, and they still do. Um, um, I very distinctly remember I moved back to the Cherokee Nation to start to write my first novel. And I distinctly remember a gentleman because, everybody was like, oh, Faith Phillips went and got a law degree. Faith Phillips is a lawyer. She made it out and
Yeah.
she's doing well. And then I came back and, this gentleman thought he saw me for the first time in years. And he said, what are you doing now? And I said, I'm writing. He goes, is that all?
Oh my
Like
gosh.
writing for a living was so preposterous.
Right.
I understand, it hurt my feelings at the time.
Yeah.
But I understand it, probably to most people, it is, sounds really, really stupid.
No, it's interesting you say that. I know people thought I was nuts to, I mean, like you, I had a great position. I had, lots of responsibility. I had all these colleagues, I moved all the way out to Oklahoma and then all of a sudden people were coming into my life to say, hey, you're going to come back to aviation before you get too old to do it. And I'm like, what? You've been dreaming about this your whole life. What? And then I did it. And all my colleagues think he's nuts. What's he doing? No, I get it. I get it.
If you're thinking from purely a financial perspective, it is nuts to leave
Yeah.
steady, well-paying job to pursue a career in the arts. So I totally get it, but I wouldn't change it if I could.
I can see your passion too. I can see as you shift from talking about corporate law, other than supporting and caring for the employees, and then having to deal with that must have been the catalyst that kind of moved you away from that, is kind of realizing that. But I start thinking about your storytelling and your novels and your screenwriter and these themes of justice and community and faith. You know, what I'd want to ask you, what it seems like I kind of maybe already asked this, but those themes are really, really important to you, it seems.
Absolutely. I think, again, that comes from my culture and my family.
Mhm,
I was brought up in the church, but also brought up hearing the stories of what happened to Cherokee people
mhm, mhm,
and how the Cherokee Nation was continuing to fight just to establish its basic rights, as a sovereign tribe, and
mhm.
which is an ongoing struggle to this day, and just for equal protection under the law. And
Right.
so I heard all those stories. My grandfather, as a councilman, and working with Chief Mankiller, was always interested in uplifting the people. And so I think it's a combination of um, being raised as a follower of Jesus,
Mhm.
um, through my parents, and then combined with seeing what we're capable of doing to each other as human beings,
Right. Yeah.
that instilled in me from a really young age of fighting for the underdog.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, there was I remember I was in the sixth grade and we were in this class, and there was one boy named Billy who was just, I mean, honestly, he was just like the biggest nerd in the class. And then there was another boy who was, kind of popular. And the popular boy like stopped the whole class and was like, raise your hand if you hate Billy. And Billy's already having a hard time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so everybody raised their hand except for me. And I just remember looking over at Billy. It actually makes me really emotional right now.
Mhm.
Um, and just seeing him sit there by himself.
Yeah.
Um, and so the popular boy said, "Oh, Faith loves Billy," and everybody laughed. But I think that kind of tells a story of who I am.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like to stand by and see someone hurt. So sorry about that. I
No, you're
did not
fine.
see
You're
that
fine.
coming. That was like 35 years ago. So I don't know why I'm crying. But anyway.
But I think it's because just listening to your heart and that I'm sure that permeates the stories you tell is it's okay.
Put
It's
a
all
friend
good. You're gonna make me cry because I'm a priest, so I cry at crazy movies. But I no, I get it. I have this thing, and it sounds silly, but and to kind of give you an example, I know what you're talking about is, have you ever gone out to a restaurant in public and you see someone sitting and eating by themselves?
Mhm.
It's just like no one should eat by themselves. We should be sharing this anyway. Just this idea of people being in life by themselves. Yeah, and I think you mentioned Jesus, so I'll go there. Is his whole ministry around healing was not just to return physical wholeness. He actually brought people back into community where they weren't alone anymore. You know,
Right. That connection and service.
Yeah, yeah. Giving them life meant restoring you to wholeness and community because everyone that was healed was always an outcast. So
Yeah.
anyway, I didn't necessarily want to go there, but we did. So there you go.
Well, I know we're going to eventually get there again anyway. So I just thought
Yes,
I'd go ahead and drop that in there.
let's
But
just let's just go.
yeah, I mean, you don't study the works of Jesus without having a very strong feeling for justice in your heart, in my
Right.
opinion. And
Yeah.
so, a lot of times I want to say, have you even read?
Oh,
When people are, persecuting and divisive, I just want to say, have you even read? But, and also I think, you speaking about seeing someone eat by themselves, but you've probably eaten by yourself, and I think that's
mhm,
a part of it too, is that I've eaten by myself. I know how that feels.
right. Right.
And so if you're able to look at someone else and remember and have that empathy, that's really, I think, what's so important as we go through life, even though it's painful.
hmm
It's so painful to have empathy. It would be, I think, so much easier if you could just be like, well, sorry for you, and just keep on going. But if you
Yeah.
look at someone who's in pain and grief and you don't feel something, then something's wrong.
Yeah. And we unfortunately are hearing more and more of that these days, that's acceptable, not that empathy is seen as a vice instead of the call to be people of faith and transformation and
Yeah.
love and generosity and justice. And I yeah, I don't
I
get
don't
it.
hesitate to reject that.
I
Um,
do.
Yeah. I'm not an expert on much, but that's one thing I know for sure is that
Yeah,
as human beings, we have to have empathy for each other.
absolutely. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. And wow. Okay, we're going to go there. It's good. I love
Oh, yeah, let's
it.
go. We're going
so
all the way till
so
the wheels fall off and
till the
burn.
wheels fall off and burn. This will be the longest podcast so far. I love it. We're going 3 hours, folks. I'm kidding.
Woo! Buckle in.
Buckle in, y'all. We're going to talk about Jesus and all kinds of stuff. All right, so corporate law, you left it, you came back, and you had this book that was kind of downloading, and so you were writing, but then you weren't you doing some teaching in your old high school
That
during that
came
time?
later.
Oh, it came later. Okay.
Yes. So I started the book career. I was still working in corporate law, but I had written like a review of Bob Dylan at the Brady Theater in Tulsa,
Oh
and it
my
got
gosh.
yes, and it got published. So besides
Wow.
my book in the first grade, this was my first taste of writing something and
hmm
seeing it go out and the public having a very strong response. And it was, I mean, I was automatically addicted, even though I had been writing for myself for a long time, my whole life. I had been
Right.
writing. But that was the first time that I got a taste of publishing, of being published, and see how it can move people and have people react.
Mhm.
And I was ready to go, but I didn't know for sure what I wanted to do. So I was driving one day and a song came on the radio, and it was a Leon Russell song. Do you know Leon Russell?
Uh-huh. hmm
And when I heard the song, this book just came. It just came into my brain, just like the whole story. And I mean, it's probably
Wow.
a terrible thing to say to the public, but I was driving and with one hand and writing as fast as I could the outline of this story with the other. It's
Don't do that in
terrible.
Georgia. Don't do that in Georgia.
Folks, don't do that anywhere. It's a terrible, terrible thing to do. Um, but I just saw it very clearly, saw it in scenes, almost like in like a film, and it was like lightning struck.
Wow.
And so I just started writing that book, and then everything happened with the company. And I said, I just decided I'm going to move back home and finish writing this book and publish it. And
Wow.
for some
What?
reason, I just felt like this strange confidence. Like I thought for sure I'm going to write this book and it's going to be a New York Times bestseller, and then I'll be, we'll have made it.
Oh, I
And
love
that
it. Oh my
didn't happen at
gosh.
all.
It did. Oh, it did. It didn't. It didn't.
Oh no, no, oh no, not even
Oh.
close. So that was the first book. It came out. So I didn't have the patience to follow the traditional publishing path.
Hmm.
Um,
I understand.
I'm a very impatient person, and I like to make things. I like to make things happen. I like to move it forward. So I sent out a couple of query letters, but not only did I not get rejected, I just didn't. They just didn't read it. Nobody was interested.
Goodness.
So and I gave it maybe 2 weeks, which that now I'm learning that the traditional publishing process is much, much longer, and you have to have patience. But it was my first book. I had left my job in corporate law. I was
Right.
broke, and I had to start selling books.
Right.
So I went the self-publishing route. And that book, I mean, people around here bought it and
Mhm.
loved it. The people who read it loved it,
Right.
but I didn't have any marketing or managing experience. And so it came out and it did what it did. And then I was like, uh-oh.
What have I done?
I'm not a bestseller at all, not even close. And so I wrote my second book, which is a collection of essays, mostly humorous, about growing up in the Cherokee Nation and kind of my very unorthodox childhood and growing up and some of the crazier things I've done. And then my third book just kind of fell in my lap. It was not my plan. That was the true crime book, Now I Lay Me Down. And that happened because I went to law school with a woman who was kind of an outsider like me.
Uh-huh.
She was like a country hick. She even had like a stronger accent than I, and
Oh my.
and we
I
went our
love
separate ways after law school. And then we ran into each other, and I had written 2 books, and we ran into each other at a music festival, and she said, "I've got a book for you to write," and I just thought, "Oh, great," because when you write books, people are always saying, "I've got a book for you to write," but you've got
Right.
your own
Right.
book to write.
Right. Right.
Um, but I mean, I loved her. We had really hit it off in law school, and so she told me the story, which I had no idea she had been going through, of prosecuting this triple homicide in Walika, Oklahoma.
Oh
She was
wow.
the assistant district attorney, and the district attorney just gave her the case. It was like her first case. Like she just started
Oh
as
my goodness.
as an ADA, and she had this very complicated triple homicide. So she told me the story by the river around a campfire, and it was almost like a sign, like the owls were hooting, the coyotes
Yeah.
were screaming,
Yeah.
and she was telling this story, and I was just covered in goosebumps.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I said, "This is absolutely a book. Yes, we have to write." Yeah. So that was my third book, Now I Lay Me Down, and it sold more. I had always looked down on true crime because to me, I thought it's really kind of undignified, I guess, to write about the worst day of someone's life,
Yeah.
or grief.
Yeah.
It feels exploitative to me, and just not my style. But
Right.
as it turns out, I'm good at it.
Well, sometimes the unorthodox path is the best. Sometimes, right?
I mean, you just like we were speaking before we started recording of get those little winks in life.
Hmm.
Um, and as it turns out, when I started researching and writing this book, it was, my voice was very clear, and I had studied Truman Capote's In Cold Blood,
Oh,
and
wow.
and so it just came out, and it was, I have to say, by far my best work.
Wow.
Even though my dream, what I wanted for myself, was to be this great literary fiction author, but
Right.
that was not in the cards for me, or at least not yet.
Yeah. Oh, but wait, there's more to come.
Well, I'm just 47, so we'll see.
Oh, yeah, there's lots to come. And that's interesting because I think the other great surprise about whatever word you use, reinvention, rediscovering, whatever yourself, is those moments where you think you should be in one place, but there's an intention about this is what I'm doing right now because it's preparing me. And if I can look at it as an educational experience rather than the drudgery of this is really not what I want to do and I'm hated, blah, blah, blah. Um, it sounds like that might have been a moment for you like that. It's not that you hated it, you loved writing and everything, but it wasn't what you thought you were going to be doing, right?
I just didn't think there was any way. It was like thinking I could be an astronaut to me, to be a
Ah,
published
okay.
author.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just so, it was so far out there that I didn't even think that it was a possibility.
Right. Right.
So then it happened, and I started getting coverage in the press and I got on television, just, like
Wow.
a little, interview for my third book. And I had never gotten any kind of coverage for my first two books like that.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, I'm making it. I'm taking off.
Yeah.
And that right then, when I said my book career is taking off, was when the principal from my old high school contacted me. And I had gone back to speak to the kids, because I thought, what if somebody had told me when I was in high school or junior high that I could be an author that was
Right.
from here? Maybe I would have chased my career a little earlier than I did. So I love talking to kids and trying to inspire them. And he called after the big hoopla with the third book, and he said, you know, we really need a creative writing teacher, and I think you'd be great at it. And I immediately said, absolutely not. No. Because I know what I have a family of medical people who work in medical,
Hmm.
nurses,
Right.
doctors, and then also a family of educators. So a lot of
Yeah.
teachers, administrators. And I know what it's like to be a public educator in Oklahoma. You don't make a lot of money.
Right.
You don't get a lot of support,
Hmm.
I would say. Uh,
Yeah.
and you are really you're really giving your life. And I was too selfish for that. I was like, my literary career is just taking off, and you want
Yeah.
me to come hang out with a bunch of high school kids? No way. And
But
so
you did though, right?
I said I was flattered. Thank you very much. And then I called and texted. Probably I have like a handful of really trusted advisors, including a spiritual advisor. I would say he's a rev.
Right.
I call him the Rev,
The Rev.
and it was unanimous. They all
Did
all
they
of them,
really?
100% said you have to go teach those kids. And I was like, man, what a bunch of jerks.
So they all saw you doing that.
100% they all said you have to go. And
Wow.
so I was really bummed and nervous, and thinking, okay, so I'm going to leave my book career. What's going to happen because I knew for sure I wasn't going to stay teaching. I just said
Right.
I'll teach for a year.
Right.
Um, and hopefully, they would find someone to take my place after the year. But um, I went, and the kids, they didn't care who I was,
Right. Oh
didn't
yeah.
care that I had written books. Um, they didn't care that I had been a lawyer. They were just like, oh, whatever. I mean, we did not click at all for, I don't know, maybe a couple months, maybe
Yeah.
4 weeks. The first month, they just didn't like me, and I didn't like them. And
Kids have a way of doing that.
Yeah, they definitely had, they knew my buttons to push somehow. And so I just thought, oh, I don't know how I'm going to make it through a year of this. And then I just kind of shared, I got vulnerable with them. I,
Ah, yeah.
I shared one of the essays from my second book that was really sad,
Hmm.
from one of, one of the heartbreaks in my life. And they were like, "You are one of us."
Oh,
They had
wow.
seen me as an outsider,
Yeah.
and a lot of these students were living very challenging, difficult lives.
Uh-huh.
A lot of, there's in where I'm from, there's we have generational trauma from the
Hmm.
12 years. There are addiction issues, health issues, um, and a lot of them were raising their younger siblings. They
Hmm.
had, by the time they were 18, they had already lived these lives of deep pain.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when I let them know that I had also had my heart broken and had some deep grief and pain, then they were like, "Oh, okay, we do like you."
Oh, I'm hearing a sermon emerging out of this is that we, oh, okay. So I'm going to go there again. This is our incarnational theology.
Okay.
The reality that, okay, here we go. God came among us and lived as one of us in Jesus and taught us that love is being present with people in their pain and in their hurt. And he's one of us. Oh my gosh.
Yes, and
I'm writing that down.
yes, and seeing the gift in every human being that you
Right.
encounter,
Right.
recognizing that even when they don't like me and I don't like them, if we could get soft with each other
Yes.
and make, I mean, when I read that story to them that was so sad, they could have laughed me out of the room,
Right.
but instead they recognized in me some weakness and sadness, and they recognized it in themselves, and we just made this little family in the
Yeah.
classroom. It was almost instant. And so I
Can,
had been,
can I pause you for a second?
yeah, yeah.
Something came to me in that relationship in a way. It goes back to your story of Billy, right? That he was the outsider. Um, but you refused. In this situation, you were the outsider.
Again.
But you met Billy in his pain, and they met you in yours. And oh, okay, I'm starting to get it now. This is good.
very,
Thank you.
very beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, and again, not planned.
Right.
Um, but so I had shared with them a personal narrative, and I asked them. So their assignment was to write a personal narrative,
Hmm.
and so they all, after I had shared my grief, they wrote theirs, and I took it home with me over. I can't remember if it was. I think it was fall break to read these personal narratives, and I just wept
Oh
and
my
wept
gosh.
and wept of the things that they had gone through and the experience that they had had.
Hmm.
So I was all in. It's like we all fell in love with each other.
Wow.
And so they were really mad because this article had come out from the Washington Post. The Washington Post had written an article, a national article about our hometown that said, "The strawberry capital of the world is the death capital of the United States." And
What? Oh my gosh.
yes, they had said that we were dying in our town 20 years younger than the national average, um, younger than people in, like coal mining communities. Like we
Hmm.
were just dropping dead 20 years earlier.
Right.
And
Okay.
they named all of these different factors. And the whole community was up in arms about it. They were so mad. But what are you going to do? It's the Washington Post.
Right. Right.
Um, and so my kids were so mad about it. And I just said, when you get angry, you can do a couple of things. You can hurt yourself,
Hmm.
um, and make it worse, and use the thing that made you mad to destroy yourself, or you can take that energy, because anger is energy.
Hmm.
Sometimes there's righteous anger.
Yes, yes, there is.
You can flip it and you can use it to change the thing that is making you angry or hurting you.
Hmm.
Um, and so I said, you guys, let's get together. You guys can pick, make little subcommittees or little groups, research this article, and we'll answer the Washington Post as a
Oh
class.
my goodness. I love it.
So these kids
Wow.
started interviewing our congressman. They like brought our congressman into the school. They,
No, really?
yes. And listen, we are 45% child poverty in the school. We
Right.
didn't have Chromebooks at the time in the classroom. So they had to record their podcast on my personal cell phone.
Oh
They
my
recorded,
goodness.
they recorded their interviews with the congressman, with the chief of police, with the mayor. They interviewed the Department of Environmental Quality, and they just laid it out there. They were like, why is this happening? And if it's true, what can we do to change it? Um,
Wow. Oh my
and so
gosh.
they were
Oh
like
my gosh.
being civil, but engaging
Yeah.
and asking what can be done. And, for our little brothers and sisters that we're raising, why
Mhm.
should we settle for this? And at the end, they ended up uncovering, this is wild, but they ended up uncovering a uranium processing plant that had been brought in from California,
Uh-huh.
and it had like an explosion in the 70s, and then the DEQ and everybody, the EPA,
Right.
hit on it, and so they started finding them. So it was a shell company, so they filed bankruptcy and left all of their nuclear waste right next to our river
Oh
and
my
our
goodness.
and out in the environment, to
Uh-huh.
exposed to rain and everything, and it was in our groundwater. And
Oh
so,
my goodness.
yeah, it was a crazy story. And so, and here's the other kicker too. So this was 2019. And do you remember what happened in March of 2020?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
That's when COVID hit
Yeah.
and everybody couldn't go, we couldn't be
Right.
together anymore. Well, we had
Right.
already just submitted our podcast to the National Public Radio Student Podcast Challenge. And the kids were heartbroken. It was all over. They weren't going to get to graduate. And they told me, they were like, we were born in the year of 9/11, and our year of graduation is COVID. We're
Oh
cursed.
my gosh.
And so I'm sitting at home and I get an email and it's from NPR, and they were like, you guys are finalists. This is one of
No.
the best pieces of investigative journalism we've ever seen. And and so I got to get all my kids together and say, you did it.
Oh
You
my
did
goodness.
it. You proved the Washington Post wrong. And
I love it. Oh my goodness.
yeah, it's an extraordinary story and something that really bonded us together. Um, and I'll never forget that experience, that feeling of victory, even in a time of great sorrow, because it
Yeah.
was a very sad time for all of them not to be able to finish their school year together.
Yeah. Wow. And to think that okay, this is, I don't mean this to sound, you almost missed that.
I know. No, and I mean, there's more. There's more. Like they broke my career pretty much.
Yeah.
Those kids, yeah. I mean, I could have missed that experience, and I also could have missed, a story of a lifetime, which is the Girl Scout murders.
Yeah, that's a good segue. You've done this before, Faith.
I've done it a few times.
Well, here's the thing. You're teaching me, by the way. I'm kind of a novice at this.
We
So
teach each other.
we do. Oh, yes, we do. Just like you taught the kids who actually wound up probably teaching you in many ways. I agree.
Lesson I've learned many times in life.
Oh, let me tell you. Okay, so talk to us. So that's a good segue. Tell me a little bit about the Girl Scout murders. And yeah,
This is one
go.
of this is one of the stories that, when I speak it out loud, I it blows my mind. It doesn't sound like it's possible, or it sounds like something that you would watch in a movie. But so since I didn't get to finish my obligation, the full year of teaching, and I had met the younger kids in creative writing, the freshmen, I agreed to come back for one more year.
Did you now?
Yes, because the younger students were demanding their chance to record a podcast as well.
Oh, wow.
They
So
had
you already instilled change, and you accomplished what you wanted to do.
we
Is
did together.
Yeah, you did.
I mean, but they did learn that you really can change the world
Yeah.
as one person, but especially if you're working in community with people and you're all
Mhm.
intentional, you put your differences aside,
Yeah.
you can absolutely change the world. And the younger students had seen my seniors do that with the podcast. It changed things.
Yeah.
Um, and the
Amazing
whole community.
what a little hope will do, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Hope is everything. And so I came back that second year, and they all wanted to do a podcast. They wanted to do different topics. And one of their classmates had disappeared. He's still missing.
Oh my.
Michael McDougall, and he had he was walking down the back road and just disappeared.
Oh
And
wow.
so they wanted to do a podcast about their missing classmate and maybe solve the crime or find him.
Hmm.
And I tend to say yes, but I knew that this was maybe a little bit outside of my bounds. So I went to the student resource officer, and he and I had a good relationship. We would walk. He knew that I'd written about true crime, and of course that was his career. And so we were always friendly in the hallway. And I said, "Hey, my kids want to record a podcast about a missing, an unsolved case." And he said, "It's a terrible idea for you to involve your students in an active investigation." And I was like, "You know what? That sounds reasonable." He was right. So I said, "Okay." And he said, "I suggest that you have them look into cold cases, old cold
Okay.
cases." And so I went back to the classroom, and they all kind of, they were disappointed, but they understood. And they started looking at cold cases in Oklahoma, and the Girl Scout murders came up. And so I posted on my, I've got a little following on social media,
Uh-huh.
and my readers were just delighted by my excursion into teaching. So they were following closely all of our escapades. And
Right.
I posted about, these are the topics my students are going to do podcasts about. One of them is the Girl Scout murders.
Hmm.
And I got home that night, and I got a private message on my social media, and it was a person that said, "If you're looking into the Girl Scout murders, there's someone you need to meet." And I just thought, what? And of course, I went to school the next day and I said, "Kids, you're not going to believe this, but there might be some new information on the Girl Scout murders.
Oh my
And
goodness.
I don't know what to do about it." And they were like, "You have to go." So I went and recorded this. Like, I think he was 90, 97.
Hmm.
This elderly man in a nursing home. He had been the sheriff in Mays County when the Girl Scout murders happened. And he had been trying to get information in front of the authorities, the governing authorities over this case for years,
Sure.
but he had been ignored. And
So, can I pause you for just a second?
yes, yes.
For those of you who may not be familiar with the Girl Scout murders, can you give us a little snippet about what that tragedy was about?
That happened in 1977. It was the first night of camp at Camp Scott in Locust Grove, which is about 45 minutes east of Tulsa.
Hmm.
And there were three little girls in a tent, and they were attacked and brutally murdered, and one was tortured.
Oh,
And that case, they were, I think, 9 and 10.
hmm.
Just really young little girls, first
Young.
night of
Oh,
camp, away from home. They'd come from Tulsa out into these hills, which are like
sure.
black, at night. It's just like you can't see your hand in front of your face.
Right.
So really, it's like the ultimate nightmare that you could ever
Oh
imagine.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's a really complicated story,
Mhm.
but basically, no one was ever convicted of that murder. but the
Okay.
authorities were convinced that they knew who did it, but that the jury had got it wrong. By finding the man, Gene Hart, that they put on trial, they found him not guilty.
Okay.
But the authorities, the investigators, the OSBI, were convinced that it was him, so they just said, well, we're not, they didn't look into it anymore.
So they let it just go cold.
What they called it when my students started looking into it was they classified it open and inactive. So
Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
you can't. It's against the law to say that a case is closed
Right.
when someone has been acquitted and no
Okay.
one's been convicted. So they couldn't say it was closed. They just said open and inactive, but they weren't actively working the case, as far as
Gotcha.
I know. Um,
So coming back though, so you met the sheriff of the county at the time. Tell us about. Go ahead.
he was he was a police officer at the time of the murders.
Police officer. Okay.
But he eventually became sheriff after the murders.
Okay.
Um,
Gotcha.
ran for sheriff. So, um, but he was a Marine. He had fought in World War II. Very deep, strong belief. Big time follower of Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
And with also a very strong desire and for justice. And so he trusted me right off the bat. We made a little connection, and he just started telling me all of this information, which I had grown up here. Everyone around here knows the story of the Girl Scouts, or that we thought we did.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been told growing up, you don't look into that. We don't talk about that because
Right.
it's so heinous. But also I had been told, people had said, it's dangerous. There are powerful people involved. It's dark
Oh wow.
magic. You don't get involved in that. And
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person that and I have been this way since I was little, that if you tell me I'm not supposed to talk about something, I'm going to say, but why?
I get that. I get
And,
that.
and especially when it involves something so terrible. And the information he gave me indicated that the people who were responsible for the murders were still living in this community where I was teaching these kids. So I mean, I couldn't just neglect that. If that was possible, if who knows? But if it was possible, I couldn't just turn my back on it. I had to get it in front of someone who could pursue those leads and see if they really were still living. But at the same time, these people,
Right.
these suspects, are living like within 10 miles of me.
Oh my
So
goodness.
very scary. It was very scary at the time.
Wow. So is that what happened with this? Can you say
So
any more about that?
well, I can give a little plug, and I can kind of give you a summary. But
Okay.
um, so this production company had contacted me about my third book, Now Lay Me Down, to make a
Hmm.
documentary about that. And I said, yeah, but also let me tell you about what's happening with this weird case with the Girl Scout murders. And they were like, whoa, that is absolutely a docuseries. And so they started documenting my experience as I was trying to get this information to the authorities and try to get the case reopened.
Right.
And so that is streaming on Fox Nation. It's just called The Girl Scout Murders. And it goes back to the old cold case and talks about all of that, but then it also follows my experience of trying to get the case reopened. And spoiler alert, the
Oh,
case is now the case is now open and
is it really?
it's reopened and actively being investigated. Yes, and that I can't.
Oh my gosh. No, I hear you. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there. But I mean, I'm sitting here going, do, I'm, I'm like, oh my gosh, the things I know. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, your life has just the things that you. Oh, okay. Anyway, that's amazing. I love it.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
It's wild. It's wild, and definitely
We
not my plan.
no, and it's it really never is. When things start falling in, when you start to someone told me one time that if to let things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Things that are forced don't always turn out the way they should. But when things just happen, I just think back to if you had really never taught that class, if you never, yeah, oh my gosh,
None of it would have ever happened. And also, what you said a little earlier about how all of your experiences are, even the hard ones or the things that are boring or that you don't like, are preparing you for something that's coming down the
hmm
road. And
hmm
when this happened, I had I had left my law career, but I had an education in law. I knew how criminal law worked.
right,
I knew where I was supposed to go with the information. I knew how the authorities should react. I knew my rights as a citizen.
right,
And so I knew how to conduct myself. I knew how, even though I have no formal education on being an investigator, I knew how to read a deposition.
hmm
And so, I could go through all the trial transcripts, and everything up to that moment had been preparing me for this very intense experience.
oh my gosh,
It's
wow.
ongoing.
So we'll get to what your advice to people are going to be here in a moment later. All right, so let's transition again.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
thank you.
So the next thing that you and I were going to talk a little bit about is Man Killer Shell. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes. So when at the time that the Girl Scout stuff fell in my lap, I was in the process of I had decided I was going to study screenwriting because I thought, my books have done okay,
hmm
but maybe several people had told me, and it was very flattering that when they read my writing, it felt like a movie in their minds. So the way I wrote
Wow.
played like a film when they read, which was a huge compliment. But so I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I'll study screenwriting
Yeah,
and
maybe on the weekends.
see if I'm any good at it.
Yeah.
And so I had started studying screenwriting and so I was planning on adapting all of my books into screenplays when the Girl
Wow.
Scout stuff happened.
Yeah.
So at the end of that experience, I had started studying screenwriting, and at the end of that experience, I started writing the screenplay of Man Killer Shell by fictionalizing my experience of going to teach and coming across an unsolved crime. And so it's not the story of the Girl Scouts, but it's a
Right.
fictionalized version of a teacher who had left the reservation and come back and had this bonding experience with students, and then they became the target of a serial killer who
Oh my goodness.
who's been targeting women in the community. So I like to call it the Cherokee version of Silence of the Lambs. It's it's very creepy,
Oh
and,
wow.
so I wrote it fresh out of the experience
Right.
of the Girl Scouts. So it was all very much, I could write in really great detail about the scary elements of that. So I wrote that screenplay in 2022, put it aside, and started working on other projects.
hmm
And then I was in Los Angeles for the LA Film Festival, and I ran into this producer, and just by chance, and she hit me up. She said, "Do you happen to have any screenplays?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was working on a TV series at the time. I said, "Yeah, I
Wait,
got."
wait a minute. You were working on a TV series?
Well, I've been writing a TV series. It's not made. It's
Oh my
not
gosh.
It's not been made, but I've written a TV series called Cadaver Dog. But um, so
I'm writing this down because it's coming out. I
it's
know it is.
it's I'll share the pilot with you if you want to read it. I
Oh, I
think
would. I'd love to. Yeah.
Father John has read it. He's actually read quite a few of. I've sent him several of my screenplays in the last couple of years. So,
Oh, I'd love to.
and actually, we had a table read with these incredible actors
Uh-huh.
reading my screenplay out like
Yeah.
an actor from a Martin Scorsese film,
Oh
and
my gosh.
yeah. Could you imagine having
I,
somebody read your words out loud at a table
oh,
read?
I couldn't.
So yeah, that's coming, but one thing at a time, I think. But so Man Killer Shell, and I say man-killer shell, it sounds wild, but I told you earlier that Chief Man-killer was
Yep.
and so there are these shells, these that live in our river.
Yeah. Okay.
They're really shiny and beautiful.
Yeah.
So anyway, named after Chief Man-killer. And so in this film, the protagonist, the main character, her grandfather gives her a knife with a man-killer shell handle. And so that's a
Oh
very
my gosh.
part of the story. Um, but so the producer came on and said, let's make it. And so it's been in
Really?
development. And our plan is for it to go into production next year.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness.
what do you know?
Who would have guessed? I mean, I'm just sitting here going, I'm actually getting a chance to sit here and have this conversation with you.
Well,
I'm honored. Oh my gosh.
the really exciting part is that it will be filmed here in the Cherokee Nation. That makes me really proud too,
Oh
because I'm
yeah.
able to bring jobs and some opportunity to hopefully I'll be able to put some of my students on a film set. When
Oh
we were
wow.
filming Girl Scout Murders, I was able to bring some of my students on film set so they can learn some of those skills. So it's just been like, full circle, amazing.
Oh my gosh. Faith, this is incredible. I can't wait. So my wife loves murder mysteries, and we love so. Okay, this is going to be good. I can't wait.
Well, I will send her a book. I'll send
Oh,
her. I'll
would
send
you?
her a third book. Oh, of course, yeah.
Oh, awesome. She'd love that. Thank you. Thank you. I want to make sure too, for listeners around here, I want to make sure I've got all the links to your books and the works that you're doing just so they can stay connected with you. So
Yeah.
this is amazing. I could spend the rest of the afternoon, but I know you got things to do, but I've got a couple more quick questions for you if I
Okay.
could. All right.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Thank you. Faith, thank you again. Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
It's been a blast.
Oh, I know. I know. We'll stay in touch for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
you're good at this. You're a natural.
Oh, Emma, thank you. Oh my God, I'm blushing. Tell your friends.
I
Okay.
will. I will. I'll tell everybody. Shout it from the
Awesome.
mountaintops.
All right, a couple more quick questions for you. So, you you face some times where it's not luck. I think it's purpose, and God's not the master puppeteer, but God is He's always drawing us to what we've been gifted for. He makes each of us uniquely, and gifts each of us and puts people in our lives to prepare us for grace and to give grace. And that's what you've done. And to open doors for those young people. And you've done for them what no one did for you. You gave them someone that came from those beginnings and said, you can do this. And that's kind of the heart of what my podcast is about is hey folks, listen to people that are just like you that can do this. You can do what you want to do. It may take a while. It may take you having to go do something you don't want to do for a while. Um, but I think this is important, and that's why I want to ask this question is when you look back, um, what gave you the courage to take and to stay in it and be patient when you didn't want to be patient, but to stay in it and take these leaps that you've taken? What gave you that courage?
I like to say that people all the time will say, "Oh, you're so brave." And that is not true. I am a big chicken. I am such a chicken. I don't like conflict. I don't like to argue with people. So I can't say that I was
But you're a lawyer.
that's why I was a total failure as a lawyer. I don't fight with anybody. I just, um, I think that so there was one particular event that was really that really helped form me in my later. I think I was in my 30s, right before I left to embark on the book career. I felt a very strong calling to go to Africa, and
Wow.
we dug wells there, and danced with the people. And I saw people who had absolutely nothing, and they fed me,
Mm,
and I thought I was going to serve them, and change
right.
their lives. And they loved me, gave me the last chicken in the village, and I saw they had joy. They
Yeah.
had immeasurable joy compared to a lot of the people I see around in the United States.
Right. Right.
And I was really scared to go there. A lot of people had warned me that it's dangerous. You need to, no, don't go.
Hmm.
And it transformed my whole life and the way I see the world and the way I see my experience here. And it just, when I got back from there, I knew I had to run at things that made me afraid.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
things that scared me, I needed to run at them.
yeah.
That doesn't make it any easier. Um, but I think that is really like, that was a life-changing thing, was to see how people with nothing still had joy in their hearts for life.
Yeah.
And it also helped me understand that it was my job to come back and find some way to be of service. And that no doubt influenced the ultimate decision to go work with the students too.
Yeah.
Because I could be really comfortable in my house writing by myself in my room, with my books, and occasionally going on a podcast or an interview, and the art life. Or
Right.
I could make a sacrifice, what I thought was a sacrifice.
Right.
But it always turns out to be the greatest gift. When you sacrifice, you think,
Yeah.
oh, poor me. And then it ends up being the most miraculous experience, I think.
Yeah. I love what you said. I think, um, and we may have said this early on, is when we find ourselves in those moments of discomfort, um, discomfort causes us to move.
You have to move.
It's when you grow. A seed planted in the ground. Oh, it sounds like gospel. A seed planted in the ground must die to what it is to become something else. We have to die to who we were to become the newness that we're becoming. Um, and so we have to. I love the fact that you said you have to run towards your fear.
Well, I mean, there are aspects of us that are dying right now as we're speaking.
Yeah,
We're always
absolutely.
in transition.
Yeah.
And I think it's just natural. It's a human emotion to be afraid of change, to dread change.
Hmm.
And then I think the sooner that you can embrace, and I don't mean just like click your heels and turn cartwheels every time
Right.
some challenge comes, but just to be aware and understand that this is life. We're
Yeah.
always in transition,
Right.
and also what's helpful is to know that we're always in a season, and the season by nature must change. It
Right.
must end.
Right.
And so I think that helps ground us, even when, like you're in Los Angeles, like on the red carpet, and they're having a party for your film debut, and you can be in the moment and say, thank you. I don't know where this came from, but
Right.
thank you. And
Yeah.
also understand that that can't last.
Right.
And that,
Absolutely.
but it's taken a lot of years to come to this point. And I mean, I always hesitate to even try to sound like I'm a wise person. I'm still learning every day, and getting better and changing and failing. But that's what we're here for.
It is, and but I think humility leads to wisdom.
And you will learn, yeah, you'll learn that one way or the other.
What do
I have to keep these two things in, and I don't. Cherokees will ask, "Are you balanced?" And
Mm,
and so it's a daily process, and sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed, but I try to keep these two things constant inside myself at the same time. One is, I am the greatest miracle on earth, and the other is, I am a speck of dust. I'm
yes.
nothing, and I'm also a beautiful creation of God.
Yeah.
And if you can somehow manage to keep those things in check, if this one gets too strong, you're going to have some big
Oh,
problems.
this sounds like Benedictine spirituality too. I'm telling. No, I love that. Yeah. Yeah. If you have to stay in balance. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a daily struggle, and
It,
sometimes you win and sometimes you don't.
yeah. Benedictines talk about each day I stand up and I fall down, and I stand up and I fall down. And I think the way you stay in balance is you're going to fall down, but you got to get back up again, you know.
Mhm.
Um, you also said something I'll add, and you said that these things don't last, but I'll tell you something that does last. The fact that you gave of yourself for those kids in school, you've changed their lives. That's going to last beyond you.
Love lasts.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
what lasts,
Yeah,
and everything
absolutely.
else will fall away.
You got it. You got it. Oh my Lord. All right. We're gonna change it up and bring our time to an end, but I could do a second podcast with you when your movie comes out. All
Yes, we'll do a
right.
follow-up for sure.
Listen, what could we?
Absolutely.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. All right. So I've got a lightning round of questions. These are just for fun to kind of end our time together. Are you okay with that?
Okay, yes.
All right. I think I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask it again. Where was your favorite place that you've traveled?
For sure, Malawi.
Malawi. Okay. I
Yeah.
kind of knew that, but I thought I'd ask it anyway. A mentor or teacher who shaped you?
That would have been my high school basketball coach. He just and I think I learned from him, and that's one of the things I learned with the students that I worked with is he just treated me as an equal.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Rather than, a student that he was having to teach, or, he just talked to me like an adult. We would have these very deep philosophical questions. And so that was really important for someone who I looked up to treat me like I was just as important as he was, and just as smart. And I tried
Wow.
to use that. I tried to apply that with all of my interactions with the students to let them know that I knew they were just as important as I was.
Wow. And I can tell that you did. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe not on
Uh,
the first day.
no, no. Well,
But
y'all
we
didn't
got
like each
there.
other. Y'all
Yeah.
didn't like each other. But this is kind of funny, but I'm going to ask it anyway because not everybody I ask. But is there a book, a quote, or a piece of wisdom that stuck with you?
There's a Bob Dylan lyric that goes, in the final end, he won the war after losing every battle. That's from
Oh,
Idiot
oh,
Wind. And I love that. I carry that with me everywhere I go. No matter how many times I lose, it's okay.
yeah.
Um, and then also, what was the other Bob Dylan quote? Oh, behind everything beautiful, there's been some kind of pain.
Oh,
So
yeah. That goes back to what we talked about earlier. Yeah.
yes, when we're creating, we're giving birth, and that's going to be painful.
Yeah.
That's where the beautiful things come from.
Reinventing yourself can be painful.
Yeah,
Change
it
is
has to
painful.
be. It
It
has
has
to
to be. Yeah, because you got to strip away what was so the new can come out. Yeah.
be.
Um, the moment you're most proud of.
Oh, I'm going to have to say when I watched my son walk across from law school, because, I had raised him as a single mom, and we went through so much struggle. And to see him overcome everything and become his own man and his own pursuit of justice,
Oh, yeah.
that was one of those moments where it's like, okay, yes.
You've you've passed on something that lasts beyond us, love. And I love that. That's wonderful. All right, this is the last question, and I hate that our time's coming to a close because I could talk to you forever, but I can't wait for the follow-up. It's coming. So,
We'll do
all
it.
right, sounds good. I ask this of every guest. If you were sitting with someone, maybe it's a student, maybe it's a friend who's facing a major change in their life, maybe they're feeling lost or they're uncertain about what's next, what encouragement or advice would you give them?
Um, I think that in times when I've had my lowest of the lows, I would wake. I can remember one morning when I woke up and turned on the television and the news was on, and I felt genuine shock that the world was moving on, the world was still moving on.
Mhm.
And so I think my advice would be, um, when you wake up in the morning, you can always start over again.
Oh,
Um, don't be afraid to let go of the shame and the grief that maybe had carried you to that morning. But when you open your eyes, it's your chance to start all over again. And we can all do that every single day.
I love that. I love that. You can always start over again.
Yeah.
Wow. I'll not forget that for sure.
Well,
Not that I've ever done that, but anyway.
But you can.
You can every single day. That sounds very scriptural, I think, too. But anyway, Faith, thank you so much for taking time to spend some time with me. I have really enjoyed getting to know you better, to learn about the wonderful things you've done. I feel so honored to be able to have this conversation with you. I got to keep saying that.
It's been a great connection. And so let's stay in touch. And when it's time to celebrate the film, maybe we'll all just go walk the red carpet together.
Oh my gosh, that would be so cool. All right, Faith, thank you so much for being with us. Dear listeners, thank you so much for listening to Never Too Late, Stories of Reinvention. Just encourage you each week to start each day over again and think about what you're being called to do, give back to others, love fully, love faithfully, and always remember that it's never too late to chase your dreams. We'll see you again in 2 weeks. Have a wonderful week.